2 whiskies.
2 large whiskies.
Remember me?
Should I?
Oh, I used to drink in here with my old man. Carter. He was a docker. Yeah, you shortchanged him one night. He put one on you.
Hello folks, and welcome back to another video where we explore the locations from TV's greatest ever show, The Sweeney. We're continuing a trip south of the river here, where we started off in Crystal Palace and got as far as Peckham. So it's on Penthorne Road in Peckham we'll pick back up with some more action from Series 1 opener, Ringer. Here, some of Frank Kemble's firm are set up in a fake ambulance, ready to spring an ambush on an armoured police van.
Ready, Mr. Kemble?
They sit at the junction of Penthorne Road with Fenham Road, waiting for the van to pass. As you can see, the view today looks very similar to that in the episode. As the van with its motorcycle escort passes, the ambulance pulls out left onto Fenham Road behind it, past a mission hall and across Friary Road heading west, with an oblivious wooden top waving them by. Because I was walking, I've slowed the episode footage down here to match up a little better. The houses and mission hall are all still here today. This residential area of Peckham does seem to be one of the parts of London I visited that has changed the least in these 50 years. Whether Peckham has been left behind or had a merciful escape, I'll leave to people's own judgment. As we approach the junction with Friary Road, the main noticeable difference is that the yellow shop on the corner has been converted into a private residence. This is something I see very regularly on my filming trips. There are so many former neighbourhood corner stores that have disappeared, for reasons I'm sure we're all aware of. From Fenham Road, the van turns south down Furley Road, where Ringer's climactic ambush takes place. The van and its escort riders head south down Furley Road. Switching to a POV shot, we can see lots of old corrugated iron and waste ground on the right as the ambush is sprung. Looking up the road today, there's new flats where the waste ground and wiggly tin were. The trees obscure some of the view, but this shot I took in 2019 shows a distinctive building in the background that is still there today. Spinning round past the new flats, we look to the south end of the road, where the ambush happened. The terraced houses are still here, and the flats across the end of the road, which is Jarvis House out on Goldsmith Road, have had a lick of blue paint on the stairwell block. As the tyre truck and fake ambulance force the police van onto the derelict ground, Kemble's men leap out and it all kicks off big time. However, the Sweeney have set an ambush of their own, with Regan and Carter laying in wait in the back of the van. This shot is from roughly where the van was forced off, looking at the east side of Furley Road. The fights took place behind me to my left, with flats on what is now Wentworth Crescent that, as we'll see, are still there acting like grandstands on two sides. You can see one of those sets of flats behind the fence here, oriented more east-west along the bottom of the road. The longer set we can see now are those that run more north-south. I love the way Kemble just strolls off here. Total boss behaviour. Kemble might have moved slow, but it was only because Kemble didn't have to move for anybody. These views taken today show the older flats in the background, with the new ones closer by that have since been built on the cleared ground where the fights occurred. Nowadays, of course, you have to walk around a bit to get the angles and be able to see everything. The flats in the background now stand more or less where the old Garsdale Road was. In between that and Furley Road on all the cleared ground used to be more terraced houses surrounding a warehouse and printing works. It's time to finally leave Peckham now and head over to Docklands, but we'll make a quick stop on the way on the Old Kent Road for a location from the Regan pilot. The scene where we first meet George was filmed in a gym above the old Thomas à Becket pub where George is sparring. The Thomas à Becket dated back to 1898, but there'd been a pub at the site for centuries, with one reference apparently in Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales way back in 1392. Sadly, the pub closed in 2015 following a licence revocation and is now a restaurant, which I didn't go into. Amongst its storied past, David Bowie used to rehearse on the second floor here in the early 70s around the Ziggy Stardust time, and boxing legend R. Henry, like George, trained in the upstairs gym. I think George deserves a plaque too, eh? Right, on to Docklands we go, and I'll ask you to bear with me a little bit here, as this sequence from the climax of Series 1's Stop-O Driver takes some unpicking. Police wheelman Brian Cooney has been blackmailed to drive for a firm that's hit a security van near Brentford. The squad chases them as they flee the scene. It was obviously a long chase, as here we are in what is now a very different Rotherhithe from back then. The cars headed up Plough Way here and would have swung right just about where the corner of this building is, but not into Yeoman Street, which you can see on the right. They stayed on the section of Plough Way that no longer exists, and was separated from Yeoman Street by literally the thickness of a wall. The section of Plough Way we stay on mostly didn't exist when the episode was filmed. It stopped at a wall which would be across our path here. In earlier days, Plough Way did go up a little further. On the left just up here was an old dock workers' boozer, the Commercial Dock Tavern. By now the cars were curving round to their left and travelling more or less parallel to where we were walking. They come up over a bridge and then turn left through a dock gate. That means as we continue on the modern section of Plough Way, they were coming round from our right and then across in front of where we're now looking as they went up the bridge, then turn sharp left through the gate, which would be in or behind that clump of trees on our side of the road. Yeah, don't worry, it hopefully gets a little bit clearer in a bit. As we turn here into the redeveloped Sweden Gate, the cars would have been coming from our right and heading into the dockyards. Right now we have South Dock ahead of us behind this building and Greenland Dock up to our left. The gate they entered by would have brought them into the yard more or less where this access road with the bins by it is. Now I appreciate that this all looks nothing like the episode and there's a lot there that seems hard to take on faith, so let's have a look at the evidence that got us here. We think the cars headed up Plough Way and then followed it right before swinging left up over a bridge and turning left through a dock gate. If we look closely at the gate, it appears to be gate number 16. Consulting the old then and now maps, my eye was drawn to a section labelled Plough Bridge, which seemed to fit nicely with the car's route. So they come up Plough Way, follow it right after Yeoman Street, up over Plough Bridge, then in through what we think is gate 16. But can we increase our certainty by confirming that this was gate 16's old location? Well, the only old docks map I could find with gate numbers on it was this one, which frustratingly is cut off right at the point we're interested in. But what we do have labelled are gates number 12 and 13 here, gates 14 and 15 here, and gate number 18 here. So we can say with reasonable confidence that these two lines down the bottom would have marked gates 16 and 17. Putting the two old maps together and seeing all the points correlate makes us pretty certain we're in the right spot. Right, back to the action. The best info I had says that the docks chase took place in the old Swedish yard between Greenland and South Docks. Some classic Jag v Granada action in this sequence. Note the rain obscuring Cooney's view here, we'll come back to that later. I'm walking northwestish here, up what would have been the car's route into the Swedish yards. Now obviously I have to hold my hands up and say that I can't pinpoint exactly where they drove. The amount of redevelopment, both in and around the docks, plus the close cropping of many of the shots, mean that there are very few visual points of reference to work from. All I can say as we arrive at Greenland Dock is that it was somewhere in this general area. Over to our left we're looking at where the Surrey Canal ran out of Greenland Dock. The reason for Plough Bridge's existence was to take traffic over the canal. Panning round we see the archetypal Docklands residential development with Canary Wharf and the financial district across the Thames in the distance. Further round to our right, the bulk of what was the Swedish yard stood where all these properties are now, so the chase was presumably somewhere in amongst that lot. Here we're looking south, back to where the gate would have been. The culmination of the action takes place in the old East Country yard below the South Dock. Cooney thrashes the Watsits off the Jag and then jumps clear shortly before it piles into a load of old oil barrels and goes up in one of the show's biggest fireballs, with the gang members still inside. Again, almost impossible to say where that was now. I'm stood in what would have been East Country Yard here behind South Dock, looking back at the other side of the building we came in by. The action probably took place either behind me or somewhere to my right. Greenland Dock is behind those trees in the middle of the shot. I scanned a good while to try and find orienting landmarks such as tower blocks or chimneys in the distance, but nothing conclusive stood out. To get a better idea of the former yard's layout, we can pull up an old map. And let's shade in the water to make life easier for ourselves. The first shots I took were from about here, next to where an old warehouse would have stood. The Swedish yard covered the area shaded in here, so the chase was somewhere in this orange area. My second shots were from this corner of South Dock. The extent of the East Country yards is shown here. I'll take a stab and say the end of the chase and explosion occurred somewhere towards the eastern end, nearer the railway lines, but I can't really say for definite. If you'll indulge me for a little more Docklands history, I was interested in the Surrey Canal I've mentioned a few times, so I drew its former route onto this modern map. It ran south out of Greenland Dock, then west all the way to industrial basins in Camberwell, in what is now Burgess Park. The southern fork you can see was known as the Peckham branch and ran to similar basins just above what is now Peckham Public Library, a literal stone's throw from Manze's where we had pie and mash in the last video. Oh, I could go for some of that right about now. A little further up, the canal ran under the Commercial Way, not too far from where we ended up with some shots from Ringer last time, so the canal makes a nice little tie-up between these two locations. The former route of the Peckham branch is now preserved as walkable paths where you can still see many echoes of the canal's industrial history, such as this ironwork bridge, that's the Commercial Way above us now, and the old towpath over to the right. It's a nice spot of calm in amongst the chaos. And I don't know about you, but I can't look at an old map like this without wondering what happened to the old docks, so I put this map together to find out. Again, let's shade in the water so we can see where they were a little easier. Now we already know that the South Dock and Greenland Dock are still in existence today. Likewise, the Norway Dock and the Surrey Basin have also survived intact. Just a tiny top right corner of the former Canada Dock now remains, whilst the Quebec, Albion, Russia, Lady, Lavender, Island and Stave docks have all long since disappeared under new development. Oh, now remember how we mentioned the raindrops on Cooney's window? Well, I was curious about that, and something was nagging me about those in-car shots, so I slowed them down a little bit, and if we roll forward just about to... wait for it... almost there... here... now that looks familiar, eh? Some of the in-car shots were filmed on the waste ground at Collett Gardens near the production offices. I presume the water droplets were to obscure the background a little and make this fact less obvious. OK, time to leave Rotherhithe and head to Bermondsey, where we have several locations from the pilot episode. We start on Wilson Grove, where Jack and George are heading to the Old Justice pub to get information regarding the assault on Detective Sergeant Cowley. On the way, their conversation foreshadows Regan's entire show-long battle with the Fifth Floor.
I see.
Here we're looking down Wilson Grove. Jack and George turn left into Ember Street here, and as you can see there are many points of reference still existing today that match up with those in the pilot. At the other end of Ember Street, Regan's ire at the pen pushers is in full flow.
You heard the latest brainwave?
No?
Flying squad, robbery squad, regional crime squad, all amalgamated into one sprawling mess. There'll be hundreds of...
Their route takes them past the Old Justice and they park up by the crumbling Fountain Stairs Wharf on Bermondsey Wall East.
I'm one of the best DIs in the squad, you know that? They don't listen to me, they listen to committee men, huh?
This shot is from the end of Ember Street as it turns right into the now paved Farncombe Street. I'm wondering if these might have been temporary school huts or something of that nature they passed on their left. Not sure. Anyway, as you can see, it's all houses now. The pilot shots are obviously from a high vantage point and look to be taken from the site of the old sawmills that used to stand between Wilson Grove and Farncombe Street. But whether there were surviving buildings they filmed from or they just had a crane on the derelict site, I don't have enough clues to determine. So now we're coming up alongside the Old Justice, and as you can see, and I'm happy to report, it is alive and well today, having been closed under a different name, the Winnicott, around 2017, but then reopening under its original name in 2023. We'll revisit the pub shortly, but first we'll finish following the route of Regan and Carter's Drive, which is up to the end of Farncombe Street and then right onto Bermondsey Wall East, where Fountain Stairs Wharf used to stand on its northern side. Today it's an open space between the road and the river. Nice enough, but I kind of miss the old hulking buildings. Here's a quick recap of the route we've taken, showing the old versus new surroundings. North up Wilson Grove, left into Ember Street, then round to the right up Farncombe Street, up past the Old Justice on the left, and finally stopping at Fountain Stairs Wharf. On the old map you can see the sawmills and other industrial buildings marked that I mentioned as being between Wilson Grove and Farncombe Street. Back to the pub then, where several bits of action from the pilot take place. In the opening scenes, Cowley has been in the pub, known Tusser gang territory, working alone on some info he has regarding the Tussers and a rival firm, the Mallorys. He darts out at closing time to watch his targets leaving. Great shot here of the Fountain Stairs Wharf in the background. You may also recognise the Old Justice as having featured in the video to the Paul McCartney song No More Lonely Nights, which shows him pulling up outside and going in through the front door. Nowadays, the pub has a Grade 2 listing and is maintained very close to its original appearance, so it's easily recognisable from the Regan shots all those years ago. As we'll see in a moment, that goes for the pub's interior as well as its exterior. The Old Justice was designed by renowned pub architect Sidney C. Clark and built in neo-Tudor style in the early 1930s. Let's head in.
Used to be a good pub, this.
Jack and George go into the Old Justice to lean on the landlord. Seeing cheese, onion and bread out like that takes you back, doesn't it?
Mallory's lot.
They persuade the landlord, played of course by Ron Pember, a fantastic actor who sadly passed away in 2022, to spill the info. Unfortunately, it comes too late to help Cowley.
Cowley's dead.
Good job those were large ones. Understandably, I don't often get to film interiors, but along with shops, boozers are one of the few where I can. As you can see, the fantastic old wood panelling and pub fittings are still intact today. This is thanks in large part to Southwark Council, who slapped a preservation order on when a former freeholder started trying to rip it all out in 2017. Looking round, even this nautical painting is still in its place. You can almost imagine Regan and Carter coming in through the doors at any moment. And yes, I did stay for a pint, possibly two. Suitably refreshed, it's back to Fountain Stairs Wharf, as was, to see where Mallory's mob lured Cowley to his demise. North of the river in Wapping, there's a bit more surviving of the old wharf and warehouse architecture, which I love seeing. They may look grim and menacing, maybe that's part of the appeal, and why it's sad in a way to think that most of this is now long gone. Today, as we've seen, it's an open tree-lined space where Fountain Stairs Wharf stood, and houses or flats on the other side of Bermondsey Wall East. We get some more great shots of the wharf when Regan first turns up on his investigation.
Local, Nick?
Right. I got through the hospital gov. They just finished operating.
How's Cowley?
They're not saying.
Here we're looking back west, towards where the pub is, and Chambers Wharf would have stood in the middle distance. Appearing in the far distance nowadays, you can see the shard peeking between the buildings, a sign of very different times. Lastly here, let's wander over to the river, where the evocative title shots of Cowley lying on the riverbed having been shoved out of the wharf were taken. I really like this title music too, with its little presage of what was to come in the main show's opening and end credits. Dawn comes up on a grey and grimy London, just how I remember it, with Tower Bridge in the background and Cowley in a bad way in the mud. The music here, Hogan's Thing by Simon Hazley, was also later used in the Series 2 episode I Want the Man. Cowley drags himself up and we get a great view of the river facing side of Fountain Stairs Wharf as he goes back up the steps that gave it its name. Fountain Stairs can be seen on old maps of London dating back hundreds of years. Now unfortunately on the day I visited it was high tide when I got there and everything was underwater. Cowley would have been laying down somewhere beneath the top edge of this tree shadow you can see on the river. The fountain steps are over in this direction, similarly submerged. You get the idea, but on putting these sequences together in the edit I thought, nah, come on son, we can do better than this. So I moved some days off and went back up when low tide was at a sensible time. And now we can get a proper view of where Cowley was laying on the riverbed. Or, I'm sorry, South London Hidden Beach, as it's now apparently known. I'm not sure what these Herberts were up to, didn't like to ask. Probably playing conkers and trading Star Wars cards. That's still what kids do, isn't it? Anyway, Cowley's long gone, but it's still a very recognisable location. And of course, I had to go and plonk myself right in his imprint, as close as I could anyway. I didn't lay down, bit damp and too many sandflies, but it was a nice little bonus to get a Cowley's eye view of the river and then walk back up the fountain steps, albeit the modern ones are in a slightly different orientation to those that went up into the wharf. Somehow, when buildings the size of the old wharves and warehouses are gone, it's almost hard to imagine they were ever there, so I love the fact that they're preserved on film for us at least. Our final stop on this trip is over on Tooley Street, where Regan is about to find himself on thin ice. As the episode starts, Regan is trying to find a phone box to get information on the sailing of the Subad, believed to contain one Gerald Bishop, out of London. He first of all tries this box on the corner of Weaver's Lane, but he has no luck as it's out of order. Dashing out, he goes to try another one across Tooley Street, down Druid Street, next door to a boozer. This is that corner today. Not much to say about it really, it's a busy touristy area nowadays of course. Even in a high tourism area though, you still get some funny looks pointing your camera at the corner of a boarded up building. As we pan round and follow Regan's run across the road though, you can see that the buildings opposite and the pub on the corner of Druid Street are all still intact. In the next phone box, Regan gets the bad news.
She sailed already? Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for your kind cooperation. She sailed!
This is the view down Druid Street now where they drove away in the direction of the railway. In those days you could, as Druid Street was a through route. Nowadays it's blocked off. And with that, we end this epic journey south of the river. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. As ever, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Ta-da!